We know we're here.
All of this Jesus God talk.
So you're an atheist.
You don't have any more proof for that
than
for what those poor people in there
look at the pictures.
For
look at the pictures,
situations that they're going through.
Sir, look at the pictures. This is my evidence. This is my evidence. What evidence do you have? You have just some kind of little mind meld. Well, I'm not going to do this and I'm not going to do that.
What do you mean evidence for
what? You said we don't have any evidence for anything.
If you were to talk to these people about their lives.
We try to talk to them, sir.
No, you try to intimidate and belittle them.
We haven't belittled anybody.
If you were to talk to them.
I talked to you about your soul. I talked about you standing before the judge of all creation.
You didn't really talk to me. You just sort of called
me. Well, you at that time you weren't relating back to me, so I had to talk to you. Now you're talking to me. Okay. So now I'm telling you, you are going to be held accountable.
So we're no longer talking. You're now telling me. But from what authority do you tell me?
Well, you want to see my authority? I have some awesome authority. It's been around for a long time.
Are you a physicist? Do you have some proof?
Yeah, well, some proof, like proof to lost people that they need to be saved. Yes.
No, I want to know your proof.
Here's biology, sir.
Why people
it don't
who
take
are doing
a rocket.
This are going to end up in some future state of.
Well, rocket science doesn't tell me that killing innocent babies is wrong. God put a understanding in your heart to know what's right and wrong.
But what about this, man? What about the people who know that it's wrong? Seriously.
Here's my proof.
Sir. I don't think that anybody can test that it's wrong.
Test what? Test what's wrong?
I don't think that anybody wants to do this necessarily.
So this, because they don't want to do it, they do it anyway, that still makes it okay?
No, I'm not saying that it's okay.
But you still do it even though you know it's not okay, right?
You do things that you know aren't okay all the time.
But that makes it all right?
I'm not saying
so you shouldn't listen
I'm not saying it makes it all right either.
See, that right there proves the Bible, because God talks about the conscience in people. He put that innate conscience in you to let you know it's wrong. And when you deny that, when you deny the Word of God that proves man's accountability to Him, then you're going to be held responsible for that. So you can be a denier, you can have a smirk on your face, but one day after a while it'll all be wiped off.
Well, what are the consequences?
Well, what do you think the consequences are?
Tell me one person that you know that has ever witnessed and experienced this consequence and has come back to give us verifiable empirical evidence of this future state of consequence. And if you can, I'm seriously,
you
I'm asking.
You know who he is?
I'm interested in these sorts of questions.
Okay, well his name is Jesus Christ. He told us about a rich man called the rich man and a man named Lazarus. One died, he lifted up his eyes, being in hell, being in torments. He said with his own mouth, I am tormented in this flame. Now Jesus Christ was the only man that went to the grave, went to the cemetery, died, he was dead. They placed him in a hard tomb and he was resurrected. And he met with his disciples for several days, and then he ascended up into heaven. So we have a written record of that. And what else evidence do you want? And not only written evidence in his holy word, but we have many historians through the early 100th century, the early century of Jesus' time that attest to this man and his life, what he stood for, what his disciples stood for. Now,
you have Herodotus, and I'm not trying to.
No, we got Philo. Have you heard of Philo?
Of course.
You heard of Josephus? Okay. Now, what else we got? We got more attestation to the testimony of Jesus Christ than any other ancient person of any notoriety in ancient history. And not only that, we got over 5,400 old parchments that prove the historicity of the Bible. Proof of what his disciples wrote, what he stood for, what he taught. So, a lot of people believe that...
see, this isn't a conversation, man. You're just yelling at people. That's why it's not effective.
Well, I'm having a conversation with you.
No, but you're talking. I'm not talking.
Okay, ask a question.
All right, so you have proof that Jesus the man lived.
To the greatest degree of any historical figure. And on top of that, I have had the witness of his Holy Spirit, the verifying of the evidence that I have before me. And not only that, I've had a personal experience with Christ, being born again, converted. And not only that, I have a attestation of the Spirit dwelling in me and living in my life every single day. A confirmation of things that happened absolute true, relevant, and acknowledgement through God every day. Miracles that I've had in my life. Miracles. Now, I know atheists don't like the term miracle because they believe that nothing came to existence by nothing. It was all an accident, which goes against all science, you know, because back in the old days they believed that things came to existence by maybe a hair, a worm, or a snake, you know, then you have worms, and they had all these ideas. But science came and proved that that was all wrong. You know, germs, they were there, and things like that. But now science today goes against that. They say, well, we all came from nothing. It was all an accident, which goes against the science that in the older days that we actually had. So it's kind of like pick and choose your science, which is not really science. You'd agree with that, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't agree that all science these days says we come from nothing. And so let's just throw science out the window and talk about an alternative form of metaphysics. Your metaphysics is that God created the universe and anything in it. There are alternative,
ex nihilo, out of nothing came something.
But there
God
are
but
you know that there are alternative, non-theistic based metaphysics.
What are they?
Well, Arthur Schopenhauer has one. And his is that the world is just the manifestation of
a
fundamental will. No, will.
Which is imagination. Your will is your imagination.
Not in his system.
So he's got something over all the other science, right?
I'm not saying he does. I'm just saying there's one out there.
So what makes you
not
believe
chemical.
him versus the Bible?
I'm not saying I believe him. I'm just saying that there is an alternative, which is not.
So you're willing
physics.
to risk your life, your understanding on all these guys that come up with all these good ideas for the moment, right?
You say for the moment.
Well, I mean, because tomorrow they're going to come up with a new doctrine, new teaching. Well, we were just wrong here a couple of days ago. We were wrong last week. Now they're all deciding, well, maybe the Big Bang wasn't really the Big Bang, you know, because I heard that in the last few weeks. So, and that's been around for a pretty good while, several decades. Now they're coming up with a new idea. So, you know, it seems like science to me is like they're changing, they're evolving, and they say, well, that's all for the better. We're trying to weed out all the bad arguments. Then they go back up and pick up the old bad arguments again, and they say, well, maybe this is right. The Bible says they're ever learning, but never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now, I believe this is the truth. It's supreme. It has stood the test of time. And it will stand the test of time because Jesus will destroy everything when they're at the light.
I understand what you're saying, man, and I don't have any problem with you guys being here. Yeah, I think it probably helps some people because being able to go through with this even after having heard, even if you haven't heard it before, even after having heard what you guys had to say, I think people probably need to hear this, you know, so that they can go on and do it anyways. So that they can go on and do it in spite of the fact that they know that they are actually harming someone and that they're probably going to feel guilty about it for the rest of their lives. I know that I will. But I'm gonna do it anyway.
You are.
Yeah. And you know why? Because sometimes, I don't know about you, I know about me, living entails doing things that you feel bad about, that you don't want to do, that you otherwise wouldn't, you know, but my girlfriend and I can't afford to have a baby.
Why not give it up for adoption? We have multiple people, and we'll give free health care, free things. But you know what? You can kill this baby, you can live your life the way you live, but there's a greater consequences to your decisions, and I don't think you've understood that. You're denying that part right now.
Yeah, that's the part I don't agree with, and I don't agree with it because I don't think we have adequate attestation to the fact.
Is the evidence that you're searching for empirical evidence of the existence of hell?
Well, yeah, I think that's the sort of evidence you search for anytime you're trying to prove that a thing exists.
Sure.
Maybe you disagree.
Well, I would just like to ask you, do you hold to the laws of logic? Do you believe in logical fallacies that we should
Well, I don't believe they're real things in the world.
But you agree that logic exists?
Well, this is a slippery slope here. talking about logic? You obviously know something about it.
Well,
You tell me what you think.
my question is, we cannot prove logic exists empirically. Yet, for us to even have a conversation that makes sense, we engage in logic.
Right.
So you presume that logic exists, at least to the point that you're willing to engage in a logical conversation about what we're talking about right now.
Yeah.
So my argument is that you presume for anything to make sense requires the Christian God. And any of these other metaphysical arguments, alternatives, cannot possibly entail logic. There's no consistency there. There's consistency in the God of the Bible. There's consistency, and the laws of logic apply when we consider these things. But if empiricism is the rule of law when it comes to determining what is real, then we don't really live by that. Because I can't empirically prove that my brain exists. I've never seen it. I've never even seen a CT scan of my brain. Yet I live every day as if my brain exists. Stomach, whatever. You know, I can't empirically prove. I've never seen it, looked at it, handled it. I've never seen pictures of it.
But you've seen pictures of others, right?
Sure, but where do we get laws of consistency from? If I believe that there's consistency in nature, there must be something that made something consistent. If things are just happenstance, you know, if we went back to the evolutionary argument that things happen by random chance mutation, I have no reason to believe that things will be the same tomorrow as they are today. I have no reason to believe that I won't wake up tomorrow with some mutated, you know, change. I have no reason to assume that. But I live as you know, in spite of that. And I think people who hold to evolution live based on a Christian worldview, even though they don't hold to that. So, you know, you talk about having a guilty conscience. And
But before you move on to the
Sure.
ethics, could I just
Sure.
maybe raise a point at which I would disagree with you? I think it's two different questions. Using empiricism to prove the existence of logic, which is a conceptual, non-physical
Right.
entity, and using empiricism to prove the existence of an actual place. I think those are two different forms of verification. Now, of course we use empiricism to prove the existence of that telephone pole or the brain, like you said. But logic and hell, I don't know exactly what your all's conception of hell is. Is it an actual physical place?
It is an actual physical place.
So you have an actual physical place that you're asking empiricism to prove, and then logic, which is immaterial. So I don't think that you could ever use empiricism to prove the objective existence of logic or love or hope, but I don't think that you would be asking too much to have empirical evidence for the existence of a physical place.
Right. In place of empirical evidence that I could go to, like buy a ticket and go to hell and take a tour, in place of that I have the empirical evidence of eyewitness testimony. So I have the testimony of Jesus Christ, who I affirm to be not only a real person, but by the testimony of his apostles who lived and died for what they believe, not just because, I mean, anybody can die for what they believe. It doesn't have to be true for someone to die for what they believe. But the apostles died for what they believed in spite of the entire testimony being against them. They had every reason to forsake their arguments, and yet they held fast to them to the point of death. And, when someone's seen something with their own eyes and they're willing to die for it, that gives me some cause to at least look into their arguments. And when their arguments are consistent, and when they have other evidence to go with that, then I choose to agree with that. Now, as Tim said, obviously, this is not all, our beliefs are not all based on physical evidence. Obviously, there wouldn't be anything involved with faith if we just had only physical evidence. So So our belief does, of course, I acknowledge our belief goes beyond what we can see with our natural eyes or feel or touch or taste. Of course, I have a sense of believing in hell that goes beyond the fact that I can't buy a ticket and go there and take a tour. But I do have a logical reason for believing it exists. And I do have the testimony of people I trust who tell me it exists. And therefore, I believe that it exists to the point that it compels me to try to convince other people. Because you have to agree with me on this, that if someone believes what I believe and does not try to convince other people that hell is real and they will be judged and sent there if they don't turn from their sin, I would be the most hateful person on this planet. If I believe that you will die and go to hell for killing your baby and not repenting of that and asking God to forgive you and turning from that sin, if I really believe that and I don't tell you that, I'm the most hateful person to withhold that information when I believe that.
Amen.
So that's, just some things to think about. I know a lot of people...
I disagree with your assertion that Christianity has a unique form of consistency, and here's why. You were talking about logic very eloquently, so I'll tell you why I think that's not necessarily true. You could have any system that you wanted. If Christianity has an internal consistency, which I won't argue that it doesn't, but that's merely because those who propose Christianity as an idea have taken their arguments and arranged them in such a way that it is consistent. All the premises are true and the conclusion not false. But I would say that you could do that with any cockeyed system, as long as you arranged your argument.
If that was the case, it would be easily proven false. Anyone could come and pick it apart and say, oh, look, here's where you moved this, here's where you did that. And people try to do that and they get proven wrong. Now, you can do that with Islam, you can do that with Buddhism, you can do that with many other things. But the arguments against it, and I agree with you that an argument can be eloquently arranged where it works, as long as the person that you're talking to is too stupid to know how to pick it apart. Or not, maybe not stupid, but not educated, not aware of the facts. But if someone is aware of the facts and you can defend your position in a logical manner, then it deserves to be given at least a second look.
But you're also saying that what you're saying is directly opposite of what you just said. These guys have made up the story. They're working all the water in it to convince people. They'd be dying for a lie. I mean, it's one thing to die for what you believe is the truth, but they would be dying for a lie. Think about it. If you knew something was absolutely false, would you die for that? Who would die? Many people would die. There might be one or two that might die for a lie just so they can get vainglory, but there wouldn't be a whole series of people, thousands of people to die for a lie.
Like, who are you talking about?
You're talking about the disciples.
If, for instance, if the disciples knew, obviously they would be the ones to know if Jesus' resurrection was all a hoax. They stole his body, they hid it away to make it look like the things he said were going to happen would actually happen. And then it comes time to, get hung on a cross upside down. You say, oh no, I'm sorry, I made that all up. We know where his body is, we hid it away, because you wouldn't die for a lie that you knew was a lie. Obviously people die for things they believe is true that's not really true. But the assertion, I think, that he's addressing, that people make, that the disciples, coordinated things to try to cover for Jesus, to make it look like everything he said was going to happen actually happened. And they stole his body, or, all these other different things. If that was actually the case, they'd have no reason to die for that.
She said.
They'd have no reason to die for that.
She's very right. She even called them.
So what's your
I'm against abortion.
I'm not here for money, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Didn't y'all say y'all need $1?
No, you misunderstood us. No. I'm just saying, if you give $1 to this organization... So
I gotta give it to them?
No, you don't gotta give... Matter of fact, we're trying to preach and teach for people not to give them any money whatsoever.
Oh, don't give them money.
Right, because they're holding up for racism.
He don't want your $1.
They're holding up for racism.
You're going to hell, is what he's saying.
Huh?
He's saying you're going to hell.
Who, me?
We're wanting people to be
He's saying
saved.
if you go in there and have an abortion, you're going to go to hell.
Oh.
We're
I'm not saying you're going in there. I'm here to have an abortion.
I don't want him preaching my message, okay? He's not
Oh,
preaching
that's
my
what you
message.
went for? Oh, your baby.
My message is that you can get forgiveness through Jesus Christ. My message is that you have
I know,
forgiveness
honey,
through
I'm a
Him.
Christian. I know.
Well, if
I
you're a
know.
Christian,
I mean,
you wouldn't want to go into this place, man.
No, I'm
She only
pregnant
going
right
in
now.
there
I'm
so
just
because she
going to-
can't get a doctor's
Yeah, I need
appointment,
to
so
just
she have to
make
get
sure
some
I'm okay,
prenatals and
okay.
stuff.
But
I'm not finna
if you
kill
don't
no
watch
baby.
it, they'll talk you into getting an abortion.
They
They
not
not
gonna
finna
talk
talk.
her,
My
baby.
granddad is a preacher. I'm not gonna get talked into being
Well,
no.
the thing about it is, if you support this organization anyway, it's actually blood money.
Okay.
It's blood money.
Okay.
It's worth looking up. Look up the
Please.
founder of
They
Planned
supposed to be out here
Parenthood.
doing- They can do that.
Look
It's
up
a free
look up the
country.
founder of Planned Parenthood and
country.
find out that she said black people are human weeds. That's what Margaret Sanger, the
There-
founder of Planned Parenthood, said. I mean, I have no reason to make that up.
Research it, and hopefully we pray that you won't be back here, even for something as menial as what you're claiming to come in here for.
What's your position? You're like the silent partner. Are you part of this organization?
We're not an organization. We're just friends.
They just have better arguments. They can just, I'm not very good with words. So I'm moral support right now.
I get it, man. I totally get your position. I personally don't believe in the system of reward and punishment because of the fact that I've never seen empirical data that would back it up. I'm not interested in, I don't want to argue. I don't want to be contentious. You know, this is sort of good for me because maybe you brought up a
So
point
do you
that
believe in judgment as far as criminals and things like that?
Well, yeah, of course.
Well, you believe that.
But of course, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish your thought.
Well, I was going to bring up the legal system when the lady here cited as the ultimate empirical authority for the existence of these realms of punishment and reward. Jesus, one man. Now, we're to sort of segue into the criminal justice system. You would never get punished on the experience and testimony of one man. You know, it takes 12, right?
No.
It takes 12, or it takes a majority in a civil case. Okay. So I think this reliance upon the existence of one man's authority.
But in order to bring charges against somebody, you have to have two witnesses. You know, two or three witnesses, and it'll be established. And then now the judgment part has to do with the jury that makes that decision, the wise people, the people in the society. But the judge presides over this. So the justice system is to punish people for their wrong deeds, right?
Well, I mean, let's say
There's
other theories like deterrence and rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation, things like that. Now, do you claim to be an atheist?
Man, I just don't give a shit. Pardon my French. It's not really a question that it doesn't really affect me in my everyday life. No, I hate that term. I only participate at the point where it starts becoming this conversation of these people gonna suffer punishment. When you say that they're gonna suffer punishment, that's the only thing that activates me. If it was just a cosmological discussion or a respective metaphysical discussion, you know, that's academic, that's the classroom. But it's not for my own self. You asked me, so I'll tell you. For my own self, I only get interested when it comes to this. You're gonna suffer this because of this belief that I personally hold to. Here's my evidence for it. And I think if you're going to punish somebody, you're going to have better evidence than you guys have. I mean, I'm sorry.
Well, we're not the one that has the evidence. First of all, we're only witnesses, and we only tell you what we know, what we see, and what we're told to tell you, and what we're told to relate to you through the gospel. You're only going to be held accountable, and you're going to be judged by the great judge at the end of time, or after your death, at the end of time. And you're going to be judged on that. So whatever we say, we're only relating the information that we have, and from an experience that we've had.
And I want to add two more because I can tell you're kind of ready to go.
No, I have to go, but I'll be here all day.
Okay,
so
well,
we'll probably talk.
I want to get in two more points before you walk off. two things.
I'm not walking
One-
off. I just
okay,
got to go
okay.
sit with my girlfriend,
Okay.
who's actually going through a pretty tough time.
Yeah, it's traumatic.
She's on her way to hell. She doesn't really like that idea.
With breast cancer potentially in between. It raises the chances. I mean, these are scientific
Maybe
facts.
suicide,
Whether, I mean, you know, if you don't, yeah,
all
I mean,
these things are
yeah,
considered.
okay. So two things. One is when we talk about the witnesses, when it comes to hell, you're making a category error, because the witness that we have, if what we believe is true, and we'll just go on the if there, if what we believe is true, we're not talking about a human witness who has finite knowledge. We're talking about God manifest in the flesh who knows all things. So that makes his witness of greater value than my witness with finite knowledge. Okay, that's the point on that. Secondly, you keep wanting empirical evidence.
You're making the error of appeal to authority.
Well, you
We
could
could
say,
go back all day long and watch it.
right. I'm just making the point here that it's a category error to put him in the same category as a human witness. Okay, that's my point. Second thing is, you got empirical evidence staring you in the face of what abortion does to children in the first trimester. If you want empirical evidence, we've got it for what's happening inside this building every day of the week and every other Saturday on the weekends. So, you know, whatever other things you want to hold to, you know, if you say you're opposed to us standing out here telling people they're going to suffer because of what we believe that they don't believe, I think that's kind of a ridiculous argument to make, looking at what's happening inside this building, empirical evidence. They're making people suffer physically, literally, today. Okay? You don't like the threat of eternal punishment or eternal suffering, and yet you're paying them to create suffering today. That's a little bit of shaky ground for your argument in opposition to us.
This organization, this racist organization,
I love the racism.
that hates,
Okay,
that
I
hates
gotta
people
go.
of color.
Okay,
Good luck.
consider your ways.